The night before the school fundraiser, my granddaughter whispered into my ear, "Grandpa, why don't we see you anymore?" And I told her the truth, quietly, like a secret. 24 hours later, I dimmed the lights in a gym full of parents and teachers, and pressed play on a video that made the whole town hear my daughter and her husband plotting to erase me like a stain. By the time the lights came up, he had called me a useless relic on the big screen. My daughter had lunged for the microphone, and nobody was laughing anymore, especially not the people who thought I would go quietly. Before we dive deeper, don't forget to subscribe and drop a comment letting us know where you're tuning in from. I am 72 years old. My name is Gordon Avery. I built houses for 4 decades, and a life with my late wife for 46 years. I am the kind of man who still oils his tools and folds a flag with both hands. My wife, Mary Ann, used to say I could fix anything except time. I have tried, regardless. Some evenings, when the kitchen light is warm and the radio is soft, I can almost cross the years and smell her hair as she leans against my shoulder. Almost. The only thing that moves me forward is my grandchildren. Lily is 10, with a mind that stacks facts like bricks. Once she learns something, it stays put. Max is 7, the comet to her planet, blazing through the house and then crashing into me, always with a grin. Before my daughter married Colin Pierce, Saturdays were ours. We had rituals. Pancakes in the shape of animals. The ritual of the treehouse, measuring, marking, letting them hammer the last nail. Story hours in the afternoon, the heavy encyclopedias that used to be Marianne's, Dogs of the World, Stars You Can See Tonight. I kept a notebook in the garage with Lily's questions. Why do dogs tilt their heads? Do stars die? We had a rule. Ask anything. No one laughs. Then my daughter, Dana, married Colin, and anything became only what fits his schedule. At first, it was small. Dad, can we move Saturday morning pancakes to Sunday? Colin's parents have a brunch. Or, we promised the Pierces we'd drive out to their vineyard. A vineyard is what they call Gerald and Patricia Pierce's hilly 3 acres of grapes that never turned into wine, just into photographs. The Pierces talked about terroir and artisan soil, and never bent down to pull a weed. When the kids cried because we had to cancel plans, our plan to build the pulley bucket for the treehouse, our plan to start a herb garden in old coffee cans, Dana would lift her chin and say, they need to spend time with family. And every time, the word family meant not me. It became sometimes, and then rarely, and then never. It became me arriving with a grocery bag of pancake mix and blueberries and being told through the intercom, we forgot to call you. The kids are out with Colin's parents. It became Colin opening the front door just enough to speak through, like I was a solicitor. He would smile without teeth and say, we are really trying to establish consistency, Gordon. The children have routines now. And I would stand on the porch with a stupid bag and an answer I would not say, you mean my grandchildren. The routines we built together. The first public humiliation came in September, at the end of a back-to-school night. The gym was bright, folding chairs in rows, parents comparing test scores and lunchbox brands. I had donated 2 new basketball hoops, in Lily and Max's names. The principal shook my hand. We need more grandparents like you, she said. Dana swept up then, tight-lipped, and Colin drifted behind her. Dad, she said, too loudly, we have talked about boundaries. You cannot just make big gestures without consulting us. It confuses the children. Colin added, as if we were discussing a zoning issue, it also puts pressure on other families. His tone suggested I was building a throne for myself with my checkbook. They made a show of taking the kids home early, to get rest, and everybody saw them tug Lily's arm when she tried to wave for a second time. 2 weeks later, the school held a grandparents' day breakfast. My invitation never came. Must have been a glitch with the mailers, Dana told me over the phone, in a voice that sounded like perfume you cannot afford. Anyway, the children went with Colin's parents. We did not want them overwhelmed. Overwhelmed is not the word for 2 kids staring at a cafeteria door as if I might still come through it. The librarian told me, later and with guilt, that Lily kept looking at the clock. We told them you are busy, she said. She knows me. She came to Marianne's funeral and stayed long after the casseroles were cold. By October, it was war by rumor. The Pierces are very good at insinuation. We are concerned about Gordon's health, Patricia said to the PDA president, as if confidentiality were a sport. He seems scattered, a little forgetful. I had misplaced my phone once at the school carnival, then found it in the prize bin under rubber spiders. That became a story that I had left the hot glue gun on for an hour and almost burned the art room down. I had never touched a hot glue gun in my life. I do not use heat to keep paper together. The calls stopped. The text stopped. The photos went online, the kids apple picking with the Pierces, the caption, "Our real home base," the kids in sweaters that looked like they came with their own trust funds. In one photo, you can see the corner of the treehouse in the background of my yard. Dana cropped it out of most, until it was just the vineyard fences and smiling teeth. Then, in November, on a Sunday night when the air held its cold like a threat, Lily called me from a bathroom stall at the country club. "Grandpa," she whispered, and her whisper is mine now, a relic I keep polished, "why do they say you do not want to see us anymore?" I sat down on the edge of my bed because my knees gave way. "Who said that?" I asked. "Mom said you are busy," Lily said, too loyal to speak the other name. "And Colin said you get confused." She stopped. "Grandpa, are you confused?" I told the truth. Only about how people can lie and call it love. The next day, I drove to their house. She saw me through the window and did not open the door. When I knocked again, Colin opened it and stood blocking the hall. He had that smile he uses for waiters he is about to condescend to. "You should call before you stop by," he said. "We are teaching the kids to respect routines." I told him to move aside. His voice lowered, and he leaned in as if we were sharing a joke. "You are not safe with them, Gordon. You do not understand how to parent today. Screens, sugar, safety. We are not letting you take them out anymore. We have to protect their development." Behind him, Max's head appeared around the stair rail like the moon. He said my name. Colin snapped his fingers once, like calling a dog to heel, and Max flinched. The old me would have left then to keep the peace. Marianne's voice in me kept saying, "Be patient with your child." The new me, the one who had lost patience in a room full of forced smiles, let my hands clasp behind my back to keep them from shaking. "Get out of my doorway," I said softly. He did not move. He laughed. "What is it like to be a man whose time has passed?" I could have answered, "It is like building a house only to have someone else sell the furniture out from under you. It is like watching your daughter become the kind of person who stares at her father through glass." Instead I turned around and walked to my truck. By the time I reached the end of the block, I knew what I would do. I did not yell. I did not threaten. I did what builders do. I measured twice. I drew lines. I gathered materials. I kept a ledger. I planned a structure and then I raised it. First, I took stock of what I actually had. In the desk drawer with my war medals and Marianne's recipe cards, I kept the documents that matter. The deed to the lake cottage. The promissory note with Dana's signature, 2 years ago, when they wanted to bridge between condos and their dream house, I lent them $120,000 for the down payment with painless interest. They called it a handshake loan, I called it paper. I never told them I had filed a lien, because I had no reason to suspect I would need it. Kids borrow, father support. It was not charity. It was family braided into finance. I also had the emails showing every tuition payment and summer camp registration I covered. I had the texts that made me feel useful. Dad, can you pick up Lily? Dad, the car battery died. Dad, could you come look at the dryer? Do you know a plumber? Those texts stopped when Colin's money arrived. We would not want to burden you, Dana texted, which is how you say, take your hands off our life. I went through the house with a small camera that Marianne had used to film school plays. I did not want to become the kind of man who records every conversation. I became him anyway. I set the camera on the shelf in the dining room when they came by to pick up boxes of their old things from the attic. Dana told me she had promised her mother-in-law the antique bowls that had been Marianne's. She would display them, she said, as if a museum status would redeem the theft. We argued like people who know exactly where the other person hangs their soul. Colin stood in the doorway with a beer and smirked. He will not do anything, he said to Dana, right into the camera that he did not know was there. He does not have it in him. I also started listening, not by device but by paying attention to the ecosystem that forms around a family as visible as the Pierces. People wanted to talk. The librarian told me that Lily had started checking out books about constellations again, and left them at the desk with a sticky note, please hold for when Grandpa comes. A neighbor told me she had heard Patricia say at a luncheon, Gordon is so negative. He always talks about loss. They seemed to find grief inconvenient when it did not lead to gratitude for their attention. I did not go alone. I called Arjun Patel, who used to be a young public defender with torn cuffs and now had a practice with a reception desk that looked like a calm gray ocean. Arjun hugged me. This is what they are doing, he said, after I told him. We will not shout. We will show. He explained what a grandparent could request under state law. He explained how family courts handle people who try to cut off access without cause. This takes time, he said. And we will not make this uglier than it has to be. I told him I had no intention of ugly. I wanted sunlight. I also called Reverend May from St. Bartholomew's. She is half my age and twice as patient. She had known the kids since their baptisms. You have been generous to us, Gordon, she said, and that will matter less than the truth. She gave me 2 pieces of advice. Speak as a grandfather, not as a plaintiff, she said. And, let them reveal who they are. She did not mean mystically. She meant that people who plot in secret always bring their habits into daylight eventually, if you give them enough rope to weave their own net. The fundraiser was my rope. Every winter, the school hosted a community night in the gym. Banners. Bake sale. A slideshow of baby pictures on the big screen while people donated to the arts program. For years, I had been one of the volunteers who lugged the projector out of the library and tested the microphones. The principal liked me. She liked that I showed up. When I asked if I could contribute a video, she said yes in 2 sentences. We are always grateful for you, Mr. Avery. Of course. I did not tell her what it was. I told myself I was protecting her. There is a line between surprise and ambush. I did not mean to cross it. I meant to make sure that the right people were in the room when I said what needed saying. Meanwhile, my enemies, my own daughter and her husband, were not idle. They escalated. They emailed the school claiming that I had shown up unglued, and tried to snatch Lily from the car line. The principal called me in and asked, kindly but formally, if I would refrain from picking the children up without prior arrangement. I had never shown up without arrangement. It did not matter. The tone was set. I smiled and said I understood. They told the pediatrician that I had a tremor and should not be left alone with the kids. The pediatrician, who has known Lily since her first rash, flagged my file and called me. "This is not my business," she said carefully. "But you may want to know what they are saying." I thanked her, hung up, and sat looking at the sun stripe on my kitchen table for a long time. My hand is steady when I hammer a nail. It does shake when I sign condolence cards. Either could be called a tremor, if you like. They filed a petition to prohibit me from attending school events without their presence, claiming that I created emotional confusion. Arjun handled that with a letter that used the word unfounded like a scalpel. And they did something small that felt like a punch. They took Marianne's framed photo off their living room mantel. I saw it when I came to drop off a bag of Lily's books. They did not let me in, but the door was open enough, and in my family you learn to read the spaces around the words. Where Marianne's face had sat for 3 years, there was now a white ceramic sculpture of a grapevine. "It fits our aesthetic," Dana said. She closed the door with a breath you could not quite call a sigh. On the Friday of the fundraiser, I ironed my blue shirt and polished my shoes. I tucked into my jacket a copy of the letter I had put on file that morning at the clerk's office, a petition for grandparent visitation. I had considered waiting. I had considered another talk. Then I replayed in my head Max's voice, tentative at the top of the stairs, and Lily's whisper in the country club bathroom, and the way Colin snapped his fingers like a man summoning a waiter to refill the water, and I decided that the time for patience had passed. In the gym, the air felt like the inside of a drum, hollow and expectant. Kids ran between tables with cupcakes. Teachers counted raffle tickets. Colin had dressed like a headhunter at a casual Friday, velvet blazer, no tie, expensive loafers with no socks in winter. The Pierces moved through rooms like landlords. Patricia had a scarf that looked like it had to be dry cleaned by someone with a doctorate. Gerald shook hands, index finger pointed like a politician. Dana wore a dress that made her look younger, and I had the terrible thought that she had chosen it to be approved of by her in-laws, not seen by her father. Lily spotted me from across the room and stopped running. Something settled over her face that you do not get to see often in a child, a decision. She changed direction like a bird and walked to me, not fast, not slow. Max followed her like a shadow trying to catch up. She stopped 2 feet away and looked at my shirt like she was reading the stitching. "Hi, Grandpa," she said. The words still fit in her mouth, even if some people wanted it to fall out. Max blurted, "We made contraptions in science," and then checked if someone would tell him he had spoken out of turn. I knelt so that my eyes were level with theirs. "I cannot wait to hear about it," I said. Dana swooped in and put a hand on Lily's shoulder like she was a vase that might tip. "Say hello to Grandpa and then run along," she said. Lily did not move. Colin came behind Dana and placed his palm on Max's head. Acclaiming. I stood up. "We will talk after the program," I said. "I have something to show." When my video started, it opened with the easy stuff. Photos of children laughing in a backyard, toddlers with raspberries on their faces, a clip of Marianne on the porch in a summer dress, waving with a dish towel. Then the captions began. Subtitles of dates, the names of recitals, the Sunday we built the treehouse platform. My voice over the images, talking about the gifts a town gives a family when it is allowed to, the way teachers say a child's name when they like it. Then the tone shifted in a breath. The screen showed the first email from Patricia to the PDA, "We are concerned that Mr. Avery has been overstepping." It showed the text from Dana, telling me not to come by anymore if I could not respect the new structure. It showed the promissory note, signatures clear, and the lien. It showed the proof of my donations and the children's names, every one of them declined by Dana later with a curt, "We do not want those sorts of strings." And then the audio. "Just do not let him get any more pictures with them," Colin's voice said, unmistakable, recorded in my dining room while he stood, smug, one elbow on the frame. I saw his head go up across the gym like an animal hearing a shot in a forest. He looks pathetic, and it upsets my parents. The kids should learn who their real grandparents are. Dana murmured something. The audio caught it. The gym heard it like a confession in a cathedral. He has always had this need to be the hero. It is exhausting. Colin again, he will fade out. They all do. The murmurs in the gym were not kind. People do not like to hear contempt spoken like policy. The principal turned to look at me, her mouth a thin, shocked line. Patricia's scarf looked suddenly like costume. Gerald stood very still. Dana's hand flew to her throat and stayed there, a fluttering thing. I heard, very clearly, the sound of Lily's breath. You never forget the sound of a child understanding that one of the adults has lied. I did not show everything. I did not show the footage of Dana telling me, with her jaw set like mine used to be when I could not back down, that Marianne's bowls looked better on Patricia's mantle. I did not show the page where I had written down, after each missed Saturday, a sentence to myself, "Do not become bitter." I did not show the text from Arjun telling me which judge would hear our petition. I did show one more thing. The letter that I had signed that morning before walking into the gym. A trust, established in Lily and Max's names, funded by the sale of the lake cottage I had thought I would die in. It would pay for their education, their first business if they wanted to build one, their first months of rent in a town that might give them what ours did. It would not be reachable by their parents. It could only be accessed when they were old enough to read the terms themselves and sign their names in their own hands. The video showed the trust's mission statement in big letters, "For Lily and Max, who should never be told love is a schedule." At the bottom, a line that Marianne had written in a birthday card for me 20 years ago, her looping hand like a thread through time, "Make things that last." Lights up. Nobody clapped. The room did not know if it was supposed to. Then the librarian, the woman who held Lily's constellation books at the desk, put her hands together twice, and the sound unlocked something. People began to applaud, a mixture of appreciation and stance-taking. A line formed out away from me, and then hesitated, because Dana had moved into the middle of it, white-faced. "You had no right," she said. "You had no right to embarrass us." The us stabbed me. I held out my hands, not pleading, not wide, just empty. I had the obligation, I said, to tell the truth, because no one else was going to. I used the voice I used when I taught the kids to measure wood, low, even, full of the belief that they could do what I was asking. You did not leave me any other way to be heard. Colin grabbed a microphone from the stage. It squealed in protest, the kind of feedback that makes you want to put your fingers in your ears. Some people did. He managed that smile, the one that pretends we are all friends at a dinner party. "We are sorry you had to see a family matter like this," he said. "Gordon is unwell. He is grieving, and sometimes his grief takes the form of dramatics." He lifted his free hand as if to gather empathy from the air. In the bleachers, someone said, flatly and not kindly, "Play the recording again." He tried to continue. The principal stepped forward and asked nicely for the microphone. "Mr. Pierce," she said, "perhaps it is best if we conclude the evening." Lily had not moved this whole time. She half turned and looked at me. In front of everyone, she reached for my hand. She is 10. 10-year-old hands still have a little of childhood softness. Her fingers were cool. I closed my palm around them because palm to palm is what you do when you swear a thing. Max looked at Dana, at me, at Colin. He came and took my other hand like he was stepping onto a boat and testing its sway. Dana said their names. "Let go," she said, and now you could hear the fear, brightening everything to a dangerous shine. "Now." Lily set her jaw in the way of our family. "No," she said. "You would think that would be the end of it. It was only the end of pretending. I wish I could say I wanted no revenge. It would make me look noble. I wanted justice. I also wanted accountability. I wanted people who had mistaken their comfort for morality to learn the difference the hard way." Arjun filed the petition the following Monday. He attached the transcript of the audio. He attached a timeline of cancelled visits. He attached a letter from the librarian about Lily's sticky note books. "You are going to get your time," he said, "because a judge will see what everyone else saw." He looked at me. "This will hurt," he added, "because he does not lie. People will say things in papers that you never imagined. They will try to take your house and call it care." He was not wrong about the hurt. The Pierces are practiced at defense by offense. They filed a response that painted me as a controlling patriarch who could not accept my daughter's independence. They called me a liar. They said the audio was doctored. Patricia insisted she had always welcomed me. I assumed the judge had never been invited to a place where you feel the temperature drop when you do not compliment a scarf. They called Child Protective Services to report that I had left Max unattended at the park for 30 minutes. The social worker came with a tight smile and a notepad. I made coffee. I showed her the camera footage from my back porch that morning, me and Max building a bird feeder out of mason jars, talking about seed mixtures. We were never at the park. She nodded, left me the brochure anyway, and called me that night to apologize for what she could not say on paper. The case closed in 3 days. They tried to seize the lake cottage by claiming I had promised it to Dana, in gratitude. I had once said she could use it. The court looked at the deed. The deed looked at the court. The trust moved forward. They tried to turn the school against me. The principal wrote a letter for the court that began, "We rely on grandparents like Mr. Avery," and then described the basketball hoops and the time I came in on a Saturday to fix the legs on every wobbling desk in the 4th grade because kids should not worry about their pencil rolling away while they are learning. I did not know she had seen that. She had. They tried to make their social circle into a wall. It turned out most of their acquaintances had been waiting for someone to say out loud what everyone had suspected about the Pierces' particular brand of charity. People started sending me notes. A mother whose son had been scolded by Patricia for having a lunch with too much red dye. A teacher whose request for volunteers had been met with a lecture from Colin about lesson plans. "We were quiet because we thought it was not our place," one note said. "You have given us our place back." I taped the notes to the inside of a kitchen cabinet where the bowls used to go, so I would see them when I reached for salt. I am not pretending none of this broke me. Watching your child choose other people's approval over your open hands is a slow, ritualized form of death. There were mornings when I stared at Marianne's tea mug and did not move for 20 minutes. There were nights when I went out to the treehouse with a flashlight like a teenager sneaking cigarettes, just to sit on the platform and feel the river noise and remind myself that I could still make something that did not fall apart. That is the thing about building. Some people think a structure is all about materials. It is not. It is about the order of operations. You do the right thing in the right sequence and you get strength. You skip a step and you get collapse. Love works like that too. The Pierces skipped about 10 steps, and called it vision. The first hearing was in March. The courtroom was small, wood-paneled, the kind of place where one cough sounds like a verdict. The judge was a woman with a face that said she had seen every kind of omission. We sat on opposite sides like a parody of Peace. Dana would not look at me. I looked at her. My eyes kept trying to find her at 5 years old, the girl with scraped knees who handed me a daisy with the roots attached and told me it was for repotting in your heart. She had always loved the approval of the room more than the truth of the moment. That is my fault as much as hers. Arjun stood and did the thing I have seen him do when he wants to make a point without looking like he wants to make a point. He talked quietly about children and bonds, about routines used as fences rather than structure. He handed up the transcript. He did not play the audio. Your Honor, he said, we are not here to punish anyone. We are here to restore something that was stolen. Colin's lawyer objected to the word stolen. The judge wrote something and did not look up. Dana's lawyer painted me as a man who could not let go. He called me grandfather, in a way that suggested the word was a diagnosis. He emphasized how busy the children were, how important regularity is for development. He said their parents wanted to shield them from confusing influences. I stared at the grain in the wood of the council table and thought about the times I had lined up lumber to see which boards would warp if you trusted them. This board was already curved. We just had to show it. The judge took testimony. The librarian described the sticky notes, please hold for when Grandpa comes. The principal described the way Lily's face changed when I found her at the book fair. A neighbor described seeing me and the kids playing in the yard every Saturday for years. Patricia described the Pinot Noir program at their vineyard. Gerald described what he thought was leadership. Colin described me as clinging. Dana described me as overbearing. She got stuck on the word generous. She wanted to say it in a way that made it sound like a vice. She could not quite manage it. She chose exhausting again. The judge ruled from the bench. It is in the best interest of the children, she said, to continue a relationship with their grandfather. The words fell like a plumb line. She ordered a schedule. She called it a schedule, not boundaries. 1 weekend day every week, after school on Wednesdays, and alternating holidays, she said. The Pierces paled. If the parents interfere, this court will revisit. She looked up then, straight at Dana. You do not get to rewrite your children's history to spare a man you married the discomfort of sharing it. On the way out, we crossed in the hall like ships figuring out whether the channel was wide enough. Dana glanced at me, then past me, and said without stopping, you think you have one? I answered without stepping toward her. No. I think our children have. She kept walking. Colin paused, adjusted his cuff link like a man on a preening schedule, and said, there are other ways to get what we want. He smiled. You will get tired. I thought about the shelf of bird feeders in my garage, little jars, the neat labels in children's handwriting. You mistake persistence for fatigue, I said. You will get bored before I do. When Lily and Max came that first Wednesday, they burst through the door like a storm. They knew where the mugs were. They knew where the scissors were. They went to the kitchen cabinet and opened it and saw the notes. Lily traced the edge of one with her finger. People like you, she said, not a question. Max asked if we were still building the pulley bucket, as if no time had passed, as if nothing can be stolen if you hold it correctly. We pulled the blueprints out like we were launching a ship. On Saturday, we went to the hardware store. I let them each carry a basket. I taught them to choose rope that would not splinter. I taught them how to coil it properly. It matters how you put things away if you plan to use them again. We built the pulley. We tested it with a potted plant. We cheered when it did not drop and kill the geranium. We made a rule. We wrote it in my garage notebook. Do not put rocks in the bucket. Max wanted to draw a rock with a red X. I added it. Marianne would have said we were visual learners. The Pierces did not stop. When they realized they could not use the school or the court to keep me out, they went petty. We need to reschedule, they said, over and over, like a drumbeat, always with a reason that sounded like a pamphlet. Piano. Violin. Mandarin. Yoga for children. They need structure, Dana repeated. I sent back one-line replies. We will be here. We were always here. They realized that meant I would have time they could not dislodge. They tried new tactics. False concern. Dad, are you sure you can handle them this long? I sent photos. Cutting cucumbers. Reading a book about Orion. Building a feeder. Do not worry, I wrote once, when I was feeling petty in a way that felt like taking off too tight shoes, we did not put rocks in the bucket. I did not plan the next big public thing. It came to me while I was sitting on the church steps waiting for the kids to be released from choir practice and I saw two boys flicking the hinges on a plaque. The plaque was for the Cemetery Restoration Fund. It had my wife's name on it. We had helped rebuild the fence around the graves after vandals knocked down several stones. People do not respect what they have not seen restored with their own eyes. That is true for fences. It is true for families. St. Bartholomew's hosts a Grandparents' Day in April. I asked Reverend May if I could speak. Briefly, she said, because she has been a minister long enough to know not to give a grieving man a pulpit without a time limit. I wrote my words on a yellow legal pad. The ink bled through on one word, enough. The sanctuary was full of sunlight and dust motes that made you feel like you were in the middle of a great migration. I did not bring the audio. I did not bring the documents. I brought 2 items. A photo of me and Dana at her age of Lily now, her hair in pigtails, me with more hair and a smile so young it makes my chest hurt to look at it. And the wooden ruler I had used to teach Lily to measure angles, the one with pencil marks where we argued about whether to call 30 degrees sharp or small. I talked about what a community owes its elders, and what elders owe their community. I talked about the honor of being asked to be needed. I did not say my daughter's name. I did not say my son-in-law's. I did say that people who mock old men for wanting to show up should probably learn what a beam looks like before they stand beneath a roof. And then I announced the thing I had set up that week with our June's gargantuan patients, a scholarship in Marianne's name for any child in town who wanted to learn a skill with their hands. Woodworking. Sewing. Car repair. These are not sentimental hobbies. They are a way to become a person who can enter a room and say, I can help. I seeded it with part of what would have been the children's college fund, knowing they now had a trust to carry them. I gave it a requirement. If you accept the funds, you spend one Saturday a month at the Avery workshop behind the church, teaching someone smaller than you what you know. The church hall filled that afternoon with children and old men with tool belts like sashes. Arjun showed up and attempted to plane a board. He nearly planed his tie. The librarian brought books about knots and pulleys. The principal hammered nails into a sanded block with the determination of a woman who had sat through a decade of meetings and needed to hit something she could fix. Colin came and stood in the doorway, watching. He looked like he did not know which part of this to attack. Dana came and stood behind him, clutching her purse in both hands like a life preserver. Lily and Max were in the corner, helping a girl make a bird feeder. They looked up only once, when Colin took a step as if he might come into the room and make it about him. I saw Lily shake her head, the smallest motion, like a whisper you could see. He stopped. That is how you begin to win without making scorched earth where children need grass. The last escalation came like they always do, not planned, but the inevitable end of a straight road. Colin tried to sell the story that I had violated the court order by taking the children overnight. I had not. We had fallen asleep on the couch at 9:30 after eating too much ice cream, and the kids went home at 10 the next morning with sticky smiles and one of those paper cones you fill with birdseed that always ends up on the floor of the car. He called the police. The officer who knocked on my door had a grandson in the 4th grade who had built the sanded block with the principal. He took my statement, looked at the clock, and said, "Enjoy your Sunday, sir." Next, he tried to humiliate me in front of people he thought mattered. At the country club, where I am not a member, because my money comes with splinters, he stood up at a dinner and made a toast that was a thinly veiled speech about boundaries. Someone sent me a video. At the end of his not-so-clever metaphor, he said, "Some elders do not know when to let go." His friends laughed in that way men laugh when they are laughing at the weakest man in their group to prove they are not him. He smiled. Then, from the back of the room, someone, Reverend May, in borrowed heels, said, clearly, "Some men do not know when to stop taking." The laugh died like a candle in a storm. The video ended. It was enough for me. I am not proud of everything I did. I sent that video to the board of the foundation where Gerald serves as treasurer. I also included a packet of public records Arjun helped me pull that showed payments from the foundation to a consultant, named after Patricia's maiden name for exactly the same amount as the club's new sound system. I did not accuse. I asked questions. Questions are beams that make people look up to see what is holding the roof. Gerald resigned in an email that used the phrase, "to spend more time with family," and everybody who read it smiled a little in their kitchen and then went on making dinner with music a little louder than usual. They tried one more time to take Marianne's bowls. This time, I wrapped them myself and brought them to the church hall and put them in a glass case with a brass tag, "Marianne's Everyday Things." Underneath, a note in my handwriting. Use what you love until it shows it. They belonged where they would be seen by people who understood why we keep things. Patricia came to look at them once and made a small sound with her lips like she had tasted something lemony. She did not try to take them again. Time did what time does. It laid events behind us like tools you might need again. Lily grew into her jaw. Max threw a baseball like he meant it. Dana stopped looking at me at transfer. She sent texts that used the fewest words possible. Ready. Here. 5 minutes. I answered with, "See you," because it matters that a child sees two adults not turning language into a weapon. Colin continued to hold doors like controlling the swing gave him power over the room. He tried twice more to get a judge to change the arrangement. He lost twice. He got quieter around me, not because he had learned humility, but because loudness stopped working. I saw cracks anyway. Lily's science project was a model of a constellation map. She wrote, on the title card in her even hand, "I made this with my grandfather, who taught me to find Orion by the 3 belt stars." Dana must have seen it before it went to school. She did not cross out my name. That is not forgiveness. That is a first board laid true. Max made a Mother's Day card at my kitchen table. He cut out a heart, then rummaged in the drawer and found the hole punch I use for straps and made a little pattern along the edge like lace. "She will like this," he said. I looked at him and saw the man he could be, sure, gentle, unashamed of care. "She will," I said. He left it on the coffee table. Dana picked it up and put it in her purse and did not say my name but did not turn away as fast as she used to. Progress is the sort of carpentry where you sometimes lay 6 boards and realize you should have started from the other corner. You pull the nails and try again. On the first anniversary of the court decision, we had cake in the church hall after workshop Saturday. The first scholarship recipients had learned to join a mitre. The librarian read a passage from a book about a boy who builds a bridge. The principal cried the way people cry only when they are in rooms where they feel safe doing it. I said almost nothing. I am learning when silence is the structure and not the gap. People came up to me and touched my sleeve. "My father," they said, and then the story that followed, an absence, a gift, a regret, was different each time but always made of the same nails. Dana came late, alone. She stood by the door like she did before, purse held like an artifact. She walked up to the case of Marianne's bowls and put her palm on the glass. Her face did a thing I have never learned to describe. It folded and unfolded, like she was testing whether it would break. She turned to me. We were 2 people in a room full of small voices and waiting wood. "Do you think she would have liked any of this?" she asked. She did not specify. The bowls in a case. The kids at the bench. Me at the center of a life without her. I thought before answering, because that is the only respect I know how to show to a person I have loved a long time and do not like very much right now. "She would have loved that we kept what mattered," I said. I let the next part leak with the honesty that belongs to brisk days and long marriages. "She would have told you to stop letting other people decide what you remember." Dana nodded. She did not cry. She did not apologize. I did not ask her to. She left. I still have the audio file on a thumb drive in the desk, labeled with the date and nothing else. I do not listen to it. I do not need the sting. The sting is for beginning. We are in the middle now, where the ache settles and becomes a place you walk even when the weather is wrong. Lily texts me photos of the sky from the back seat when they drive home from violin. She captions them with coordinates, because she knows where we will point the telescope that night. Max writes me notes with drawings, a bird feeder, a bucket pulley, a baseball, always with the same label in block letters, for US. I asked him once why he added the label to every picture. He said, "So we know who this is for." Possession is not theft. It is belonging, when you do it right. The school asked me to speak at graduation this year. 5 minutes, the principal said, then added, 7, if you promise to make me cry. I wrote a speech about work. I did not say anything about the Pierces. I did not say anything about a video in a gym. I said this: when you build, you make choices that you cannot see right away but that hold weight later. Choose well even when nobody is looking. Especially then. Do not let anyone tell you your story is small. People who are afraid of your story will try to make it theirs. Write yours anyway. Read it to your children. Read it to your grandparents. Afterwards, people hugged me, because that is how you say amen to a speech when you have been called to do better. Colin left before the mortarboards flew. He always leaves before the part where work is acknowledged as something other than a resume line. Dana stayed. She clapped. She did not come find me. I watched her take Lily's picture near the geraniums by the gym. For a moment, the angle was wrong and the picture included the corner of the treehouse at my house, miles away and impossible. She adjusted, as people do, then took the shot. The final piece of my plan had nothing to do with court or church or school. It had to do with the town photo archive, which is a sliding metal drawer in the library's back room and smells like dust and church basements. I went with the librarian on a Tuesday afternoon that was too hot. We labeled photographs from 20 years ago, then 10, then last year. Festivals. Ball games. The fence at the cemetery. The first workshop Saturday, the last bake sale. In each, if you looked carefully, you could see people who did not expect to be caught in a frame. People passing lemonade. People holding a rake. People you could call family if you chose to. We curated a public exhibit for the summer. We called it Hands in the Picture. We put it up in the library atrium. People came and stood under the ceiling fans and pointed and told stories that children absorbed like sugar. Dana came with the kids. She stood in front of a photo of Marianne handing Lily a slice of watermelon under the oak, and she reached out and put her finger on the paper, then pulled it back because you are not supposed to touch. Lily looked from the photo to her mother to me. She took my hand. "She is right there," she said. Then, whispering the way she did that night at the country club, "How can they forget if she is right there?" I answered what I had learned in the year we fought and the year we built. Some people do not forget, I said. They decide not to remember. There is a difference. The good news is you can decide again later. We closed the exhibit with a night where people brought one thing that belonged to someone they loved and told a 50-second story about it. I brought the wooden ruler. I told the story about 30 degrees. The librarian brought the whole punched picture frame Max had made. The principal brought a desk leg, and we laughed so hard there were tears. Arjun brought his first case file, framed, and made a joke about paper so dry only law could love it, and then told us about the old woman whose eviction he stopped and how she used to slide sweets across his desk like a spy. People walked out slowly that night, like they were crossing a field in the dark. They did not want to trample what had been planted. I went home to a house that had been empty except for me for a long time. Not empty now. The living room had a box of paints that was not mine and a baseball under the couch. The kitchen had an index card with a list in Lily's hand: oil, rope, granola bars. The porch had a geranium that had survived the winter because I refused to give it up. The treehouse had a pulley bucket with a rule written on the wood rail, in 2 hands: do not put rocks in the bucket. My phone buzzed on the counter. A photo from Dana. A candid one, taken by someone else, maybe the librarian. Me in the library atrium, talking to Max, our heads bent over the ruler like conspirators. Under it, a message: Mom would have loved this. I nodded at my empty kitchen like a man who has just been given the correct measurement and can finally make the cut. They tried to erase me. They tried to plaster over me with the word routine and call it home. They tried to teach my grandchildren that love is a thing you schedule if it will not fit in the trunk of your car between the yoga mat and the golf clubs. They did not listen when I said I am a builder. You cannot erase a man who knows how to frame. This morning, Max rang the doorbell 3 times in a pattern we made, long, long, short, so that I know it is him even if my ears someday forget. Lily came in behind him carrying a book of star charts bigger than her forearm. "Sky is clear," she said. I had pancakes ready in shapes that do not look like animals unless you squint and love me, which they do. We ate on plates that did not match and then went out to the yard to see where Orion would be once the dark came. We will stand there tonight and point, and I will tell them the names, and they will tell me mine, and when they go home, they will carry the smell of pine and pancakes on their coats, and Dana will lift them to the hook and smell it too and remember what it was like to be lowered from a treehouse by a rope you could trust. Truth does not shout. It loads the bucket evenly. It keeps the rope coiled and clean. It explains the rules once, twice, 10 times if that is what love requires. I am not erasing anyone. I am writing us down so we are harder to lose. They wanted me gone. I am staying. Not with anger, but with memory. Not with force, but with structure. And every laugh that falls from my grandchildren into this house lands like a nail hit clean, 2 good strikes, 1 firm set, and then the beam holds.
Hello everyone, and thank you for watching. I truly hope you enjoyed listening to this story as much as I enjoyed creating it. If you did, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel to help support the creation of more stories like this. Have a great day or evening.